The honourable member for Stephenville Port au Port.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and it's a pleasure to rise and speak to concurrence. Essentially, to those who are listening at home, we're speaking in reference to the estimates that we've been going through line by line for the last few weeks. I'd like to take the first moment to acknowledge the chair of the Resource Committee, the member for Bayvert Green Bay. And the member for Bayvert Green Bay was very polite during the whole estimate process, and as he alluded to when he opened debate this evening, we've been going 3 hours every other morning through a number of departments. We've had great cooperation from the members opposite throughout this entire process, through their questioning and through our line-by-line items. As he alluded to, we went through the Department of Advanced Education and Skills, Business, Tourism, Culture and Rural Development. Honourable colleague, the member for Lake Melville, the Honourable Minister of Environment Conservation, spoke earlier to the concurrence debate as well. We went through line by line with his department, as well as the Office of Climate Change and Energy Efficiency, Forestries and Aquaculture, Department of Forestry, Agri-Foods, Natural Resources and Public Engagement. So, going through those items line by line, I tell you, and I spoke to this the other day, and it's not going to be the whole point of my time here this evening, but last week when I spoke to the budget, I referenced the amount of work that goes into estimates and the line-by-line items and the savings we've been able to achieve. And it's just kind of coincidental this week that it seems that the members opposite seem to be raising the fact that if we had kept the HST at 15% come January, we would have found about $100 million in savings. Well, in fact, we found $100 million in estimates. We found $100 million in just line-by-line savings through estimates, which the members opposite have seemed to agree with every other morning this week when we look at purchase services, office supplies, transportation communications, etc. In fact, just this morning we had the great pleasure to sit down with the Minister of Advanced Education and Skills and his staff and go line by line there. And there was a couple of sections in which there was an easy $50,000 in savings, $50,000 in transportation, less printing supplies, so on and so forth. So when the members opposite question what we could have done with the HST in January as opposed to what we're doing now, I just asked them to reconsider some of the opportunities they had with estimates. But I won't belabor that subject this evening because I've spoke about the estimates process. I've spoke about the opportunities the opposition have had when they decreased the personal income tax to the highest earners of the province at a time which they shouldn't have. But I'm going to deter from that this evening. One of the members opposite earlier this afternoon, I believe it was the member for Fairland, and while he certainly did raise some good points and ask some great questions, as the opposition should do, he also said that we're having a tough time selling the budget. We're having a tough time selling the budget. He said the members opposite, he said we don't understand it. He said your own members don't understand it. The public doesn't understand it. The media doesn't understand it for that matter. You're having a tough time selling your budget. Well, I'd like to point out that we're not selling anything, okay? We're not selling a budget here, okay? We're in fact painting a reality. Well, it's interesting now. Everybody's interested in what I have to say opposite here now. You got their attention. And that's fair enough. Fair enough, yeah. And I'm hearing it now from the other side, as members on our end will know. But that's fine. But I'm gonna go right back to that. We're not selling anything. We're painting a reality right now of the situation we're in. And Newfoundland and Labrador is a different province now than it's ever been. We just went through a decade of the best prosperity our province has ever seen. And right now, we're in a completely unfortunate financial crisis. You know, our population, just over 500,000 souls, is spread out some 400,000 kilometres. And I don't need to educate anyone here on that, but it's just trying to put it in perspective as to how many people we're trying to serve and the sheer geography of where these people live. We're looking at basically like the state of California has 38 million people. We're in the same ballpark there in terms of size, but we're spread out in every nook and cranny. Now, all other Atlantic provinces combined only make up a third of the size of Newfoundland and Labrador, you know? And so when you look at the impacts of this budget and the fact that it certainly does impact every Newfoundland and Labradorian, we're also thinking about the realities, okay? So the citizens in the Avalon and the Northeast Avalon have a different reality than those in rural Newfoundland. And there were some good references to that earlier from the member from Fortune Bay Cape Lahoon and the realities of rural Newfoundland. Well, let me tell you, there's many of us over here that do represent rural Newfoundland as well, okay? And so the reality of the impacts of this budget are going to be completely different to those right now who are frustrated, and rightfully so, with some changes. And in particular, I'll just give the reference of education and the multi-glade classroom. So that's a big concern right now for people on the Avalon. But the reality is that people in rural Newfoundland, we've been doing that for 30, 40 years. So the reality is, while the constituents here and the residents here are upset with some of these changes, and rightfully so, no one's easy to change. Okay, change is not something easy to take. But the reality in rural Newfoundland, and as the member for Labrador West pointed out earlier, services in Labrador, it's a completely different situation. So when you look at the impacts of this budget, it certainly is affecting every Newfoundland and Labradorian, and we understand that, and we understand the implications of such. But the realities are going to be different on the Northeast Avalon, as they are in the Straits, as they are in Labrador, and as they are in my district of Stephenville Port-au-Port. You know, when I think about some of the changes that are impacting our municipalities and our different areas, I think we have to look to the strength of our municipalities and the things that they have to offer. Municipalities, Newfoundland and Labrador, for example, they have the Urban Municipalities Committee, and that represents the 20 largest towns in the province. Stephenville, my hometown, happens to be the 12th largest municipality in the province of Newfoundland and Labrador. Now, M&L and the UMC, the Urban Municipalities Committee, you know, they've done some great work and some looking at how can we share services better. Okay, so outside of this budget and outside of everything else, we already have municipalities looking at how we can provide services better. Okay, and we're looking at things about sharing services and how can we share services better. And the word regionalization gets tossed about. I'll relinquish from the fact of using the word amalgamation. Nobody likes to hear the word amalgamation, and I don't believe that anybody wants that forced upon them. But the reality of looking at how we're going to deliver services to our population that's spread out amongst 400,000 plus kilometres, and how we're going to do this, we need the cooperation of our municipalities in order to do this. I was fortunate enough to spend 2 years as a councillor in the town of Stephenville, and I can tell you I learned a great deal on my time with the town of Stephenville Town Council. And one of the things that stuck out to me, it's really helped prepare me, as a matter of fact, when it comes to these estimates and looking at millions of dollars budget lines, because I was able to take my experience from hundreds to thousands of lines to now millions of lines. But one of the things that sticks out to me is how the municipality of Stephenville, as a prime example, and the municipality of Kippens, Stephenville is separated from Kippens by about a 6-meter bridge. The town of Stephenville has 6,790-odd residents, as according to the last census. I'd wager to believe it's around 8,000. The town of Kippens has, I think, 1,800 citizens, and I'd wager to guess that's around 2,000 or more. So a 6-meter bridge separates these two municipalities. We're both incorporated as municipalities, but what we've done is we've learned how to share services to have a greater impact to the citizens we serve. And just a couple of examples for you. So the town of Stephenville and the town of Kippens has partnered with garbage collection. We've partnered with fire and emergency services. Our fire departments train together right now on a regular basis. We've partnered with respect to looking after our cemetery and how we take care of our loved ones who've passed on. We've partnered in regional services. We have a regional aquatic centre. Both municipalities have contributed funds to our hockey rink, to our museum. Our water plant operators in the town of Stephenville back up and assist and help the water plant operators in the town of Kippens. Our street sweepers, we share our street sweepers. These are just a few examples of how two municipalities are sharing services. And I guess I bring this up because we're looking at how we can do things differently and how we can serve our population. And then today in question period, and again throughout the afternoon through the course of the debate, we heard a number of references as well to how municipalities may suffer right now and some of the challenges that they're faced with and pressed with. And good on the Minister of Municipal Affairs to get up and stand up and say to the members opposite earlier this afternoon in question period that, in fact, we've given municipalities exactly what they've asked for. We've given them exactly what they've asked for. They asked for their municipal operating grants to remain the same. We've certainly taken care of that. They've asked for the cost-sharing ratios to remain the same. And for those here on our side, members opposite, and to those at home, there was a lot of buzz prior to the budget that people were in fear of the cost-sharing ratios changing from the 90-10 and the 80-20, and they may be bumped up or bumped down. But our government recognized the important role that municipalities play and the services that they deliver to our citizens. We didn't change any of that. So we've given the municipalities everything they've asked for and more. And what we're encouraging them to do now is to look at ways to share resources together in the same fashion in which I've just referenced. You know, rural hubs are becoming more of a reality right now. And I referenced the 20 largest towns and Stephenville being the 12th. And I think areas such as Stephenville are becoming a rural hub in a sense that it has nothing to do with what we did with this budget. It's just a sheer reality of the demographics of our province. So the outlying rural areas around Stephenville being the rural hub for the Stephenville Port-au-Port area, we're seeing senior citizens move in from Cape St. George, from member from St. George's Hummers District out in St. Finton's and so on. And individuals want to move in. They want to be closer to the bank. They want to be closer to the grocery store. They want to be closer to the hospital. And the aging population that's moving into these rural hubs, Gander is another great example as a big rural hub right now, and all the Gander Bay Area, the people that filter into these areas. So if we as a government, Clarenville is another one, as the member for Terra Nova just mentioned, there's all kinds of rural hubs. Now, I'm not trying to say we need to take away from rural Newfoundland, but historically our citizens move naturally anyway. And as they age right now, they want to be closer to services. This is a huge reason why we need to really re-examine the way in which we deliver services. You know, the Minister of Health has mentioned a couple of times, and I think the reference is quite poignant, that the time of plenty is beyond us. Okay, we've had our most decade, our greatest decade of prosperity. We've reached peak oil. Okay, the oil royalties have gone significantly down from $148 a barrel in 2008 to what was it trading at today, around $45 a barrel for Brent crude. So when you look at how things have changed in just a 7-8 year period, we really have to examine how we're delivering services. You know, this morning in estimates as well, and I bring that up again because I think the estimates is a great exercise and it's a great opportunity to learn how different departments operate. So we learned in estimates this morning, and some of the members opposite raised some questions, and rightfully so they should have, great questions, and particularly around reference to a few advanced education and skills offices. And the Minister of Advanced Education and Skills was quick to point out that, in fact, in 2013, the former administration cut 20 different advanced education and skills offices. Now, I can't knock them for having done that. Is that a bad decision? Did it affect people? Sure, absolutely. But it just goes to show that somewhere along the way in 2013, they had half an idea to look at we need to reevaluate how we deliver our services. They cut advanced education and skills office in some of the most rural and remote areas and reorganized the whole lot. We've done the same thing. We've taken the exact same exercise and looked at ways in which we need to reorganize as well. So while I can't necessarily applaud efforts in closing offices, at least they had the idea to recognize that there needed to be opportunities in realizing how we're going to deliver services to our people. Now, the only trouble I have with that is they did this at a time, and in the same breath, they decreased taxes to the highest income earners in the province, and they knocked down HST in successive years when they really shouldn't have. If they had just kept the cuts that they had in 2013, as bad as that budget was, because believe me, it was bad. I was personally affected as well, by the way. I think there was a closure of 72 employment assistant offices across the province, some 225 employment counsellors. I happen to be one of them. 225 employment counsellors, and they were employed through various nonprofit aspects. What I've yet to understand as well is how a nonprofit entity didn't deliver services any cheaper than what a government service would have been. In any event, the cuts they made at this particular time, they did so at a time in which, again, they decreased the personal income tax for the highest earners, and they also decreased HST. Now, I'm not over here saying we have all the answers. There's no doubt about that. I wouldn't stand up and dare to dream we have all the answers. But, you know, we had to act now. And I think that's been recognized, and I'm hearing that from constituents in my district, as are other members as well. You know, kicking the problem down the road to future generations, simply not an option right now. We're paying more on debt than we are in education. Okay? Now, in that sentence alone, you just have to kind of pause and reflect on that for a moment. Okay? Because we've had some changes to our education system in this budget. And they're changes that have not been embraced by all, and others have embraced them, and there is some challenges in presenting these new opportunities to deliver education. But when you're paying more in debt than you are in education, how can you further ask your province to grow? How can you further ask your residents to learn? There's just so many ramifications of paying more in debt than education. You know, if we continue to do nothing right now, we would be struggling to deliver our everyday government services. How do we pave roads? How do we deliver municipal operating grants? How do our hospitals operate? If we did nothing and put our head in the sand like the ostrich, you know, there's no way out of this particular mess right now. So difficult decisions had to have been made. We've recognized it impacts every Newfoundland and Labradorian. Rural Newfoundlanders are going to be impacted a lot different than those on the Northeast Avalon and so on in between. But we're never going to be able to please everybody. But at least we've recognized now, and we've had to take some decisions. Okay, we've had to make some very difficult decisions. Now, does raising taxes make this any easier on anybody? No. I'd be foolish to stand here and say that it does. But it's measure that we had to take right now. And the members opposite don't like to acknowledge the fact that some of the increases that we've made are only temporary, and fair enough. And I believe just a moment ago, actually, the member for Fortune Bay Cape Lahuna got up and referenced again all the fees that we're going to pay and all the fee increases and the 300 fee increases. Well, I went through the fees when I spoke to the budget last week, and I implored members opposite to find over half of those 300 fees that affect everyday Newfoundland and Labradorians. There's a few fee increases that are unfortunate that our people are bearing the burden of right now, one of them of which the member for Lake Melville, Minister of Environment Conservation, just brought up. We increased park fees. Park fees have went up a very minimal amount. Did it have any great impact on anyone? No. In fact, the park in my district, Barsha Park, or for member Humber St. George's Humber District, it's the general vicinity, Barsha Park, that's sold out in 5 minutes. So we increased park fees a few dollars, and the park sold out in 5 minutes. So now, did the individuals who bought those season park passes, are they upset with that fee increase? I'm certain they are, but it didn't have a grave impact on everybody's pockets across the province. In fact, it increased our revenue and our coffers as a result of that, and only those members who are going to be going to the park are going to be the direct ones taking up that cost. So the other thing about the fees, and Minister of Environment Conservation just mentioned as well, some of the fees I brought up last week, thousands of dollars in environmental impact assessment studies that hadn't been raised in 20 years. 20 years before you even had to look at a fee increase. These are some of the other measures we've taken that no one likes to look at and applaud as a good fee increase, because again, it's a difficult thing to say. We've had fee increases in victim fine surcharges, the Highway Traffic Act legislation's coming in this fall. Those are some good fee increases as well. You know, outside of the fees and the other measures we've taken in the budget, one of the common things that we've heard from members opposite and some of the things that are touted in the media is around people are going to now leave our province. And people are going to be leaving in droves as a result of the drastic measures we have just taken. Now, historically, we've been a province where people leave anyway, okay? People leave to work, people leave to come back. This is a commuting flow of traffic, whether it's through employment or what have you. But what I need to look at, and I'm sorry, Mr. Speaker, having a moment there here and from the members opposite. When we look at the Atlantic provinces in general, our tax rates are comparable and competitive with all the Atlantic regions. And then you have to take into other factors. What is taking you to leave this province right now that's greater than what's keeping you to stay? And is that the cost of housing? Is it employment? What are the circumstances that are going to make you leave? Because a consumption tax of 2% on HST, people will adjust their spending. People have said in the media they can handle a consumption tax because you can curb your expenditures here and there. Okay? But what are the other factors that are pushing you to leave? One thing that no one else has talked about with respect to this budget, and we look at our demographics, which I referenced earlier, and that we're so spread out, we have an aging demographic across the entire province, is that we have a ton of baby boomers that are going to retire now in the next 5 to 10 years. So as much as it doesn't seem like there's anything right now, we have a significant amount of retirements year over year over year. The Minister of Education just referenced last week some 200 approximate retirements in the education system over the next year. So retirements are continuing, and our baby boomers are retiring, and therefore therein lies the opportunity for the rest of us to take the time now and to stay and to look at the opportunities that are before us. It doesn't make it any easier to increase taxes right now, as I said. One other thing I'd like to point out, and that's in particular to media and social media, and I got to wrap up here quickly, 30 seconds on the clock, but media and social media has played a huge factor in this budget. 10 years ago, when the former administration had layoffs and they increased taxes and everything else, Twitter and Facebook did not exist. And in fact, the only way the educated public could get their message out was a letter to the editor in the newspaper. Well, we're engaged in a whole new world right now with Facebook and Twitter and social media. And you know what? One of the good things, as much criticism as coming from individuals who are now reaching out to speak about the budget, we're engaging a lot more citizens right now, and we're engaging our young people, and we're engaging everyone else who wants to engage in this dialogue. And so over the next few weeks, as we continue and conclude the debate, I encourage people to keep contacting us and reaching out. My time is out, Mr. Speaker. Thank you very much for the opportunity.